If you're 0-2, you might as well throw out the rest of the season.
All of the
You're just not going to make
noise.
It was only like a handful of teams
holdouts,
who's
who's
in
in
camp,
camp, who
they even
wants to
gave
get
us
paid,
stats
all
to back
this
up
stuff,
this
that
law
for the
or
49ers.
rule. And here's the
just didn't
problem
matter.
with that stat.
This team,
Bad
is
teams
the number
are
one
always
skill.
going to find a way to start
This is
over.
a Mark Schlereth thing.
That's
number
the
one
reality.
skill is
In the NFL, it was always
last
if
night
you're
was
0-2,
proof positive
you might
that
as well throw
despite
out the rest of the season.
all
You're
of
just
the
not going to make the
presumed
playoffs.
noise,
It was only
all
like
of
a
the
handful of
contract
teams that ever made the
holdouts,
playoffs, right?
who's
We all,
in camp,
they even
who
gave
wants
us
to get
stats
paid,
to back
all
up
this
this
stuff, that
law
for the
or
49ers.
rule. And here's the
It just
problem
didn't matter
with
for
that
them.
stat.
This team,
Bad
is
teams
the
are
number
always
one
going to
skill.
find a way to start 0-2.
This is a Mark Schlereth thing.
That's the
number one
reality.
skill is
Spent. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Appreciate you guys for joining me today. So let's get started. Look, I'm going to come out and say it. I was wrong. I was just wrong. I have, over the last probably about year and a half, 2 full postseasons, about 1.5 NFL seasons, 2 full postseasons. I have said Josh Allen is the second best player in the world, said he's the second best quarterback. I have been very big on the Josh Allen train, partially because to me, it felt like he did things that other people just simply could not. And I still believe that, but I no longer believe he's number 2. To me, when you get into the all-time greatness category, it's not just who's the most prepared, who's the most well-coached. It's who are the guys who can simply do things that other human beings are not capable of. Who are the LeBron James, the Michael Jordans? Who are the guys like Ken Griffey Jr., who are just different even amongst other apex athletes? And we saw that on Sunday. I was watching Ravens-Bengals, and Joe Burrow played great. But Joe Burrow had a game that I know I'm going to see again. I know I'm going to see another quarterback who gets hot, has multiple weapons, is playing against a defense that currently coverage-wise is struggling, and he's going to put up 300-400 yards. He's going to put up 3 to 5 touchdowns. I know I'm going to see that again. And this is not discrediting Joe Burrow. But what I saw from Lamar Jackson, that is not normal. That is not something. The play he made where he fumbles the snap, stiff arms the defender, runs around and throws and gets the touchdown. That is a play only Lamar Jackson can make. Only Lamar Jackson can make that play. Kyler Murray can't make that play, even though he's also athletic. Mahomes, as great as he is at avoiding guys, I don't think he can make that play. That is a 1 of 1. So we also have to take account for Mahomes has clearly separated himself because resumes matter in this kind of thing. When guys start stacking up resumes that are not impeachable and, for the most part, not even comparable, Mahomes with 3 Super Bowls, all of his achievements, the multiple MVPs, he has clearly separated himself from everybody else. Fine. But then who has the second best resume in the league? It's the guy with 2 MVPs. Don't give me the crap about the postseason. Don't give me crap about him underperforming. Who else? No one actively playing has the postseason resume of Mahomes. Since Mahomes started winning, it's him, it's Brady, and it's Stafford. And Stafford isn't even really in the conversation because they're basically generations apart, and Brady is no longer playing. So when it comes to guys that are actively playing, that are in the conversation. Mahomes has removed himself from everybody. He has lapped the field. And Lamar Jackson's number 2. The 2-time MVP, playing like potentially like Derrick Henry said, potentially playing like his 3rd MVP. That guy is doing stuff. He did stuff you just cannot see. You cannot prepare for. Again, that Joe Burrow game was great. I will see that again 100 times before I leave this earth. That Lamar Jackson game, I don't know when the next time I'm going to see that from a quarterback not named Lamar Jackson. The Ravens, and we're going to talk about this later today too, were 0-2. And I came on here and I said, you know what? 0-2 doesn't mean shit. And why doesn't it? Because when you have great teams, great coaches, great players, and here's how I know, Tony's going to join us later today. We've talked about how dysfunctional Baltimore's coaching is at times. He isn't a fan anymore of John Harbaugh. He is not the biggest fan of Todd Monken. We have seen the product, which is the defense, which is underperformed, to put it nicely. And the Ravens are still 3-2 because they have number 8 at quarterback. This is why you pay these guys basically whatever they want. And when they're truly worth it, when they are truly this kind of talent, this kind of generational, people question Dak Prescott getting $60 million because he's nowhere near the talent of Lamar Jackson. We've had this quarterback conversation for the last couple years. And again, Mahomes has separated himself. He's number 1. But out of the Josh Allens, the Joe Burrows, Lamar Jackson, to me, who I feel like that is the second tier of quarterback, and then you could start getting C.J. Stroud in that conversation, Lamar has separated himself from both Josh and Joe. And again, Josh played like crap yesterday. Joe played amazing. And I still walked away from that going, Lamar can do things I've just literally never seen in my life. That's the second best player on the planet. That's the second best. And again, second best player, not just even second best quarterback. Because we have to start accepting that when you say best football players alive, we almost always give the number 1 spot to a quarterback. And then we do this thing where unless the second guy is also unanimously great, Brady Manning, Brady Breeze, Brady Rodgers, a lot of times we like to say, well, the best defensive player is actually number 2, or the best, offensive lineman, Trent Williams, he's maybe the second best player. No. Trent Williams is fantastic. Chris Jones is amazing. Patrick Surtain playing a fantastic best corner in the game. The second best football player in the world is Lamar Jackson. Without not even a question anymore. That guy, second best player in the world. Transition to a guy who used to be the second best player in the world. We have to stop doing this as media, as sports fans. And by doing this, I mean, let's stop lying or making up things. And even if we do, can we just all admit we're wrong? Like, is that so? Are we all so unbelievably stubborn as a community that we just won't admit when we're wrong? Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay, wins a Super Bowl. That's Tom Brady. Last I checked, and still currently stands, the greatest player in the history of the game. Oh, well, Matt Stafford also went to LA and then he won a Super Bowl. That was accompanied by maybe the greatest receiving season in history, Cooper Kupp, and maybe, looking back on it, one of the greatest head coaching jobs in what Sean McVay pulled off. Take those out, take one of the greatest coaching performances ever, take the greatest player ever out of it. Why are we expecting Aaron Rodgers, who is no longer a force multiplier, who is no longer a top 5, top elite quarterback? Why are we expecting him at 40? He's already had a full career. He's already going to the Hall of Fame, all this stuff. Why are we surprised that he's struggling in New York as a 40-year-old? Why are we surprised past his prime, He doesn't look as good. He throws more interceptions. He's not the same player. He's 40 coming off an ACL. We did the same thing, and I was there to witness it firsthand. We did the same thing with Russ. I did it with Russ. I'm raising my hand. I was wrong. Russ comes to Denver, and it's like, oh, well, he has this piece, and he has that piece. And it's like, oh, look, we saw Peyton Manning do it, another outlier, also younger than Aaron Rodgers. We saw Tom Brady do it, a clear outlier, the greatest player ever. We saw Matthew Stafford do it. Stafford was tremendously younger, plus had a better coach. At what point do we just stop saying, oh, yeah, great older quarterback or old quarterback who used to be great, new organization with like a couple of pieces. Oh, yeah, this is all just going to work. There's a reason why it was an anomaly when Tom did it. And there's a reason why that added to his all-time greatness and his legacy. There's a reason why we revere Tom as the GOAT. There's a, and then, well, again, we can't just keep giving that title to everybody. If it was the first time we've ever seen it, or if it was the most impressive thing we've ever seen, whatever it is, then you can't just, I say this is generational. We throw around generational for quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence is generational. Caleb Williams is generational. Are they? Not saying they can't be good, not saying they can't be great, but generational is a really big word. And generational is supposed to be a sacred word, only used every so often. The GOAT is a pretty sacred word. The GOAT player did something that was obviously unusual, obviously not something you should try to replicate, obviously not something that can be done by everyone. And now we just expect Aaron Rodgers, because he was elite, because he was at the pinnacle of the sport at one point in time. It's 2024. Well, he was an MVP a few years ago. He's had ACL surgery since then. And again, most athletes, when they lose it, they lose it. Peyton Manning was an MVP candidate. 2 years ago, he was getting benched for Brock Osweiler. 2 years later. Like, why are we expecting Aaron Rodgers to be this person that has just never existed besides Tom Brady? And guess what? Rodgers isn't Tom Brady. Man, a lot to talk about today. Tony is going to be joining us to talk more about Lamar and the Ravens and how he feels about their chances this year going up against the Chiefs. I'm obviously coming off a 3-game win streak. There's one team every year, and a lot in the last couple of years has been the Niners. But there's one team every year that just beats other teams up, and you see it because teams the following week after playing this team, the record is awful. And I think we're starting to find who that team is this year. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. feel bad for you. Man, he's straight cheeks. Why would Denver draft him at 12? Bro, he's a second-round pick. Did y'all just see the same game I watched? Probably not. You probably didn't watch the preseason game. But Bo Nix looked great. And he looked every bit as advertised. Which, remember, the advertisement of Bo Nix was not, oh, he's Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels or Drake May on a talent level. It was good quarterback, understands the system, is very accurate, can be productive, and he has Sean Payton as an offensive coordinator. And he looked every bit the part of it. And don't tell me it's only preseason, because if he was bad, you'd be dragging him for playing bad during the preseason. And remember, very important note, Packers didn't play their starters. Good NFL players against backups, that's what they do. They dominated. And Denver dominated last night. Bo Nix, QB1. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Oh, man, that video I play in between gets better and better every single time. Shout out to Bo Nix. Shout out to the Denver Broncos. Winners of 3 straight. We're going to get more into them tomorrow, obviously, 14 Tuesday. But with that being said, let's talk about every year there's a team. And a lot of times over the last couple of years, it's been the Niners. And that is the team who just beats you up. And it doesn't just show in the box score for that game. It actually shows for the box score of the following week. And that is the team that once they beat you, the teams playing this other team, they lose the following week. The Niners, opponents after playing the Niners last year, I think they finished with 4 wins post playing the Niners. And there's a lot of factors. Some of it is physicality. Some of it is, are the games going to overtime? You know, are they running the ball more? You just get beat up, and then you're just not the same team the following week. And it's always something to keep track. Now, I don't want to give this team officially the record yet, because they're still, with only 5 weeks, we get a more clear answer. We'll have a much better answer in 3 or 4 weeks when we can really, when we're halfway done with the season. But the early return right now is the Detroit Lions are the number 1 team you don't want to play. Because you're not just going to have your hands full with a competitive, talented Lions roster. You are also going to have your hands full with whoever you play next, because you just played that Lions roster and it was an ass kicker of a game, and now you're stuck. Again, a lot of these teams don't rebound very well. Week 1, Lions play the Rams. Game's close. Comes down to the end. We're like, yep, that's what the Rams are supposed to look like. The Rams still haven't recovered. They're still getting everybody injured, and they lose the following week to Arizona 41-10. Week 2, I put the Bucs into my top 10. Why? Because they beat the Lions at home, and I thought, wow, that's one of the best wins you're going to have this early in the season. Week 3, the Bucs come out, get their ass kicked to Denver 26-7. The Arizona Cardinals, they play the Lions. Game's okay. Arizona comes out the next week, loses 42-14 against Washington. And who's the last team to do it? We saw the Monday night game, Jared Goff, the Lions are on a bye. Jared Goff goes 18 for 18, beats the Seattle Seahawks. And the Seahawks the Seahawks were one of the best defenses in the NFL through the first couple of weeks. Then they play the Lions, give up 42, and then they lose to the Giants 29-20. So again, you never really know exactly how these are going to go, and you have a much better answer after week 7, week 8, once we got more data. But right now, early returns are the Lions are the team that you don't want to play, because in the following week, it's hard to get a win. It's hard to even be in some of those games. So early return, the Lions are potentially the worst team to play in the NFL. And we are joined once again by Tony, the richest man y'all will never meet. How you doing?
Yeah, y'all will never meet me, bro.
So let's talk about it. So I started off today. Now, I think we could go back and forth and we could give Lamar all the praise, and I did that to start the show off. I think Lamar's officially, I don't know how you look at him right now, and not just as a top 5 quarterback, but as someone who's not a top 5 player in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
But I made the case right now. To me, when you get into that upper echelon, to me, it's Mahomes has to be one. You can make an argument for like two defensive players, but Lamar I would put two right now. And part of
Hmm.
that is because they can do things when they're on their A game that nobody else can do. I watched a lot of that game yesterday. Joe Burrow had a great game. Lamar had a great game. But the stuff Joe Burrow did, while not to take away from it, I've seen quarterbacks throw for 400 yards and several touchdowns. The plays Lamar Jackson can make are just different. Like the one he did where he literally stiff arms the defender, he runs around. He's the only quarterback that can make that play. He's the only player that can make that play in the National Football League, Mahomes included. We know Lamar is great, but I want to ask, as a Ravens fan first, we talked on the preseason this defense, and you said that you felt confident about this defense because it was more of a cultural thing and an organizational thing more than it was just Mike McDonald left. Are you still confident about this defense 5 weeks in?
Yeah, because when we talked about it, I said that, there'll be rough stretches. Like they're gonna have some struggles. It's gonna take a little adjustment period for Zach Orr to like put his hands fully on what he wants the defense to be in his vision.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the philosophy as a whole, the philosophy is to do a lot of disguise, not be one dimensional, mix it up. You don't know who's blitzing, who's not. You don't know who's dropping, who's not. You don't know who's in coverage, who isn't in coverage. Like that's the philosophy of not just Zach Orr, but the Ravens as a whole. If Zach Orr, say he got a head coaching job or a different job tomorrow for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason, the philosophy is still the same. This isn't a team that wants to let you know what it's going to do next. But to answer your question, I feel I have no reason not to feel confident about the defense. Like they struggled on the back end, but
Mm-hmm.
yesterday I wouldn't necessarily say it was a matter of anything coverage wise. Like they just got beat at times by just better players. Like Jamar Chase is a top 5 wide receiver in this league. T. Higgins to me is a top 15 wide receiver in this league, and it's like you're going to have those days, specifically when the Ravens have, but over the last 2 seasons or so, they've played the Bengals very conservatively. They've given up stuff underneath, forced the Bengals to be patient with the offense, not giving up a lot of explosive plays and things like that. So the Bengals, in knowing that, they had a counter punch. You play a team enough, you'll have those counters, and that's what they had yesterday. But the defense didn't show me anything to feel nervous when they just dominated a top 3 quarterback in the league a week ago.
Okay, valid. Now, I feel your confidence level in divisions probably got to be at an all-time high. The Browns are dysfunctional. Who would have guessed it? The Bengals, who I still think are a talented team week in, week out. 1-4 is just, it gets harder and harder to get yourself out of that hole. And the Steelers, I mean, they couldn't score 20 points if their life depended on it. So what is your confidence level in division, and what is your confidence level 5 weeks in with the team that this team is clearly geared to play and or beat, that being the Kansas City Chiefs who are going to play tonight?
When it comes to the division, I've always been confident that they win the division. I thought that they get challenged for it for sure. I couldn't have foreseen this happening in the way it's happening. And like obviously the Steelers are 3-2, they're right there record wise, but like if you watch the games, you can tell they're nowhere near. Um, when we talk about Kansas City, I I don't really like it's not a thing that I feel a need to discuss right now, just because like they have a long ways to go in their season based on everything they got going on. The Ravens still have a long ways to go. They haven't put together 60 minutes of great football on both sides yet. I think
Mhm.
the Bills game was probably the closest to that, but even still, they got the 21-10, and then the offense kind of stalled out for a little bit. So both teams have a long ways to go. So I don't really, as a fan, I don't really feel a need to like say, oh, this will happen when the Ravens play the Chiefs again, if they play the Chiefs again. I think it's a moot point now. That's something I think we could probably revisit in a few months.
Okay, no, I agree. Something I did want to revisit. We're at about a quarter of the season, and while again, I think you have obvious circumstances where the Cincinnati Bengals being 1-4, you are finally starting to hit that stretch of you are running out of games to make up room, right? I
Mm-hmm.
feel the same way about the Vikings, which I'll give Sam Darnold some credit. Even if Sam Darnold reverts back to more natural Sam Darnold, if the Vikings just play 500 football the rest of the year, they're going to win 11, 12 games and they're going to be in the playoffs, which is an incredible thing to do for Kevin O'Connell, who's, I think, the runaway coach of the year at the moment.
Right.
But I do want to bring this up. So this is, of course, we did our show, preseason predictions. It's easy, in my opinion, to say, oh, well, who's worse than you expected? Because you can just point to record. Again, we both picked the Bengals to be much better than they were, 1-4. Couldn't predict that. Who has, give me one AFC team and one NFC team? There is a correct answer for both of these. Which teams have impressed you far more than you thought from their preseason predictions or from your preseason predictions?
Let me see. You said one AFC team and one NFC team?
Yep.
I'm not going to give you the satisfaction. So can't forget about that.
Hey, man, it's right there. It's right there.
Can't forget about that.
Because I know the answer.
So not applicable to the AFC. But NFC wise, NFC, I'm not really surprised by anything that's going on over there. The Giants, actually, I will say that I was just talking about that. Funny enough, I said if the Giants make the playoffs again with Daniel Jones, just got to give it to Daboll. Like he's got it. Whatever it is, he's got it.
No, I agree.
But in all seriousness though, the Broncos are playing much better than I thought they play from a all around standpoint. But defensively, it's really nice to see that the quarterback play has been good enough to not affect the dominance that they've shown this early in the season. Because like I said coming into the season, I like the names on the defense. I thought that they still had a lot of good pieces there. And they have the best corner in the game. And I didn't want that to be a waste. And I thought it really could based on the offensively, but they put things together in a way where Bo Nix is playing well. And in this situations where he's not playing well, he's not playing you out of the game. And Sean Payton hasn't put them in a space where kind of like he was doing at times during Russell Wilson's stint, where you're putting the team in the best spaces to win. And I think that that's good for them as we see the AFC's kind of weak, and they're going to be in a spot where they can win, 9-10 games and make the playoffs.
No, it's fantastic for two reasons. A, my mental health. It's been fantastic for that. B, it's nice because you do get to see my favorite part of this entire football season. And I personally haven't thought as a conversation, that I'm biased, but I love that through 5 weeks in, like, there is no longer a conversation for who is the best corner in football. It's been PS2 and it's been Sauce, but I think Sauce holds a lot, and that's neither here nor there. But I love that Surtain getting this credit, even if it goes downhill, which, knock on wood, is him getting this kind of credit when you are that great of a player at your position. Like Kay Adams came out today and called him Revis. I'm not going to go there yet because I think it's unfair when you give someone like Revis is a legend.
Kay Adams. She did a lot with that one.
she did. And it's like, I get it. And it's dope because they're on a win streak. But I'm like, look, Revis is one of the greatest corners ever, bar none. And so as great as I think PS2 is, you got to play more before we get you in that conversation. Like Champ was at the game yesterday, and I'm like, I'm not even putting you in Champ's class yet because, again, Champ had a decade plus run of being one of the top two guys, if not the number one guy. I will say this, I am shocked, though. You didn't want to give any love to your boy from USC. I won't give him a whole lot of credit. I think Justin Jefferson's ridiculous, and Kevin O'Connell's the best. He's on the best coaching hot streak at the moment.
The thing with that is I'm not surprised that the Vikings are winning because I thought that they'd be really good before JJ McCarthy got hurt. I didn't even think they'd be bad with Sam starting, but I just didn't think that it'd be enough because I didn't see Sam being able to if I can say, I didn't see him being able to overcome some of the issues that have plagued him. And they
Mm-hmm.
still show up. The interceptions still show up. Some of the weird turnovers still show up.
Oh, yeah.
But on the other side of the ball, Brian Flores is a
Masterclass right
psycho,
now.
a
Masterclass right now.
psycho, and it hasn't mattered. It hasn't mattered. So I that's why I didn't say them because I'm not surprised they're winning. I'm
Mhm.
just kind of more. I would say I'm more surprised that Sam's been this clean.
Yes. Um, I do also want to get, because we'll stay on the more probably negative side of it. Your picks for both, before I get chatty, your picks for both AFC and NFC East. I'll ask first, Rodgers, and again, and I talked about this early in the show. At some point, as fans, we have to understand, like we say a lot of times, like, oh, we've never seen that before. This is the first time we're seeing it. Like Brady, what he did in Tampa at 40 plus years old, I think we almost take that for granted and just let Rodgers step back into that role and be like, oh, well, Brady did it. And Rodgers, we know, is he has that kind of peak all-time greatness. He can do it. But it's like there's a reason why we have Tom as the GOAT. So Rodgers struggles. You were much higher in the Jets than I were. And then for the Eagles, I truly think like they don't normally fire coaches in season. Not that they're not willing to get rid of guys. They still normally do it in season. But like I think this is the Bill Belichick team in waiting. I think Sirianni is way over his shoes, and there's a lot going on in that locker room. So speak on that really quick. Are the Jets not looking as impressive, or are you concerned about Rodgers? And then your view on the Eagles still as high as to start the season?
Real quick, the Jets thing is not. The Jets are where I feel they could be. You look at the record is 2-3 right now, and they could easily be a one-loss team. You know, they lose by one in a storm to the Broncos. They lose that Vikings game yesterday. It's super tight. That's a win. So they'll get better. It's just a matter of if he can get out of his own way. Because Breece Hall should be running much more. He should be a much more featured player here, and he's not. And I think that's in part due to Aaron running this Green Bay offense that just does not work for the team they have structured. On the other side, I think the Eagles are going to be fine too because the schedule's like kind of weak. They'll get Devontae and AJ Brown back. Sirianni, they could win the Super Bowl and Sirianni can get fired. I don't think Belichick's the guy that they're going to look at. I think they'll want to go on the younger side, like a lot of teams are trending. But I think the Eagles will be fine just because the schedule's going to line up for them, and talent normally wins out in the end when you have like a weaker schedule from a talent versus talent standpoint. But it's not good there from a vibe standpoint. The vibes aren't up.
No, 1,000%. It's all bad at the moment. And I still think the Eagles have a crazy amount of talent, which is why I think this season is still salvageable for them. Like there's just not, I just don't think you can look at their roster, especially with San Francisco looking like it is finally declining. You can't tell me there's three better rosters in the entire league to what the Eagles have. Yeah, no, it was great. I love doing these little check-ins. The Rams, it's unfortunate. Like I think we were both, I still will believe we were right about the Rams going into the season, but there's always one team a year that just it gets screwed by injuries, and this year it's the Rams. And so
there's no reason they're in as close a games that they are in.
that's a credit to Stafford and McVay. Like that shows you how good they are and how great they're at their job. Because like any other team goes through those kind of like injuries they've had, man. Oh, that's what I wanted to get you. My actual last question here. 30 more seconds before we let you go. I ain't gonna say I was right, but I was right. And all respect to Asia, all respect to what the Aces have done. But hey, man, that is the one seed for a reason. And that series based, like, again, like Asia's clearly the best player in the game. When you gotta knock out the best, somebody's got to play like it. And if you look at Stewie in game 1, 34 points, she didn't get to that point total again. Sabrina had a stretch of consecutive bad games against the Aces. She finally broke out of that. I'll say this, with the Aces out, who is now, would you say, going forward, who do you got winning the title with the Aces now eliminated from the postseason?
I'll say if it's the Liberty versus Connecticut, I like the Liberty to win the title. If the Liberty got to play Minnesota, I like Minnesota.
That Minnesota's tough. Minnesota's tough. I feel like that is a styles mixed fight, and I think Minnesota is. I agree with you that the Liberty are at their core, they are soft. Now, I think they are supremely talented, and that can outweigh some of the softness, but I do agree. I think Minnesota, that's a tougher matchup for them just from a physicality and style play.
Yep.
But, but man, I always appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. Go Broncos. 2 teams started 0-2 and have gone on 3-game win streaks. That's the Ravens and the Broncos. Y'all heard it here first.
Peace out, man.
I am willing to argue and take it to the grave, and you just tell me not one of 3 answers. I get it, you're a fucking idiot, or you're absolutely correct as a response to what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Overhaul has the best quirk that is not one for all for one. And New Order. New Order is just fucking unfair.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's not a amazing quirk. I think it's like, I think I agree. I think it's one of the best quirks. Hot cold's really good. I think One for All is a lackluster. I think One for All is probably like the worst quirk. And like the other nuts quirk, and you're not gonna like me for saying this. Hard.
Don't forget to go check out as well. We do a lot of shows here at HardFoul Network. Don't forget to go check out A&M as well. Episodes dropping every Friday. Videos coming out twice a week. So we do this every Monday, and that is we hold ourselves accountable. So we have HardRight and HardLeft. We take what is the thing that I feel I was the most right about the prior week and the thing that I feel like I was the most wrong. Some good, some bad. Let's get into it. Starting with HardRight, because you have to start with why you're right. The Denver Broncos, and this is my pick of the week again. Now, everybody can say that they won. I've been right about this now all 3 times. I am 3 for 3 on betting the Broncos, and I am somebody who says do not bet on your own personal favorite sports team because your own bias is going to get in the way of it. And when you start putting money, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. But I was right on how they would come out in Seattle in what was a really hard environment. Bo Nix, first ever NFL game, playing Seattle, that defense on the road happens. Then I said, hey, but that was +6, and you would have pushed. The next one was Denver was 8-point dogs to the New York Jets. And I said, even before the weather came out and before it became a shit show of a game because of the weather and the offensive play, I said, there's no world in which the Denver Broncos are 8 points worse than the New York Jets. That's right again. And then we go to Sunday and we doubled down and I said, look, the rate, it was -3. And I was like, perfect. Denver, 3 points, boom, take it. It's going to be a landslide. Denver goes down 10-0, scores 34 unanswered points. Raiders get a garbage time touchdown. Everything so far that I have said about the Broncos, Bo Nix, Sean Payton, I have been boom, 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 correct. Sean, it took about 1.5 years. He started, remember, this is different than any other organizational turnaround. And I want to stress that. And it's going to continue to look different as long as the Broncos have the wealthiest ownership group. As long as they have Walmart money, this turnaround and how this franchise is going to operate with its head coach, who they are paying a lot of money, and their general manager, who's trying to get another contract, this is going to be different than almost anybody else. This is going to be, hey, we're going to sign you, and this is going to be like the Eagles turbo. I say this to Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman and the Eagles will sign a player, and if that guy's not living up to his contract, they have no problem cutting him off, cutting the guy, releasing from the team, taking the salary cap hit for 1 year, and then moving forward. The Bengals can't do this because the Bengals, the ownership group, is just, they don't have the funds for it. If a guy doesn't work out, they basically have to hold on to him because they don't want to take the cap hit, and they don't have the actual funds to cash flow the team. I hate to say it the correct way as someone who's not a billionaire, but the better way you prefer as a fan. So Sean has been bringing in his guys. Russ, all the money owed in the world. All we've heard is what a horrible contract. Now the second worst contract in history. According to a lot of people, only Deshaun Watson's is worse as far as NFL contracts go. And they said, hey, Russ, they brought in Sean, said, hey, let's try to make this work. Clear it didn't work. Boom, get out of here. We'll eat the $40 million. Denver's going to have $76 million in cap space with the best corner in the league, no longer conversation. Several defenders playing like it's a contract year because it is. There's no first-round picks on this defense. All these guys are playing their ass off. An offensive line that Mike McGlinchey's got a big deal. Well, McGlinchey, who has not been there for the team's winning streak, and Alex Pajetsky, if I'm saying his name correctly, he has been. He has a chance to get paid. Bo Nix, who is, again, is not the most talented guy in the NFL. We are all aware. Bo Nix is not going to blow you away with just talent level alone. But with Sean Payton, these receivers, this running game, Javonte Williams getting back, again, Denver was -3, probably had, if not won, the second most impressive win of the weekend. And now they're about to go, and we're going to double down on this HardRight. Not only did I call the 3, if Denver does what I think they're going to do, this team that was 0-2, and everybody was willing to write off, and I was in the boat. I talked about when they went 0-2 because it looked so familiar to what they had been the last 9 years, and as someone who's watched way more games than he should have over these last 9 years of what was at that point just a piss-poor franchise and not well-run operation, several different head coaches, all that, I went through that. After 2 weeks, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to look the same. And I talked about it, and I said, are they about to become the Cleveland Browns, which is a franchise that, despite maybe a great player here or there, a Pat Surtain, a Joe Thomas, just can't actually get it right. And I was genuinely nervous. Were the Broncos about to just spiral? And ever since then, they're 3-0. Sean Payton, his offense is working with Bo Nix. And the defense with Vance Joseph, who deserves, that's the best defense in football. That is the best. It's hard, right? We are doubling down on how right we're about to be. The best defense in football, your rookie quarterback who's getting better, your head coach who is making his imprint on individual game plans and the overall roster. You just beat a division rival going 34 unanswered points. Like, everything right now. This is how you turn yourself around from being the dysfunctional shit show of a franchise that they've been for 9 years. And I'm not denying that they've been dysfunctional. I'm not denying that they haven't been good. I'm not denying that they haven't been the hardest watch in the NFL, considering they've had some good defenses, but the offense has been so unwatchable for so long that it makes you not even want to watch the games on Sunday. Guys are playing right now. Garrett Bowles has never had a winning season. Patrick Surtain has never had a winning season. Cortland Sutton has never had a winning season. Like, these are guys who have been there for years. You know, I wish was still there? Justin Simmons. You know what's crazy? The Broncos got rid of Justin Simmons. In my opinion, still one of the 2 to 3 best safeties in the National Football League. And some of the secondary is even better. Again, I said I've been right all 3 times on the Broncos picks. And the next 3 games, Panthers, Chargers, Saints, don't be surprised if this team is 6-2. A 6-2 team with a rookie quarterback? And then they're going to get their next big test. We're going to argue about this later. Their next big test is against the Baltimore Ravens, which, again, they might be 6-2 heading into that game. A 6-2 Denver Broncos. You know how long it's been since I've been able to say that? And, of course, when you're right, we're also wrong sometimes. And HardLeft for this week, I wave the white flag for Sam Darnold. And I think this is the perfect time to do it because this was probably Sam's worst game statistically, and he missed some throws. So this is the game that everybody else is going to come out here and say, oh, look, we were right about Sam Darnold. He's about to start regressing back to the means. He's about to start playing like Sam Darnold again. He is the guy that we saw the first 4 weeks. That's a mirage. It's an illusion. He's not really that guy, et cetera, et cetera. And I actually thought, you know what? This is proof that Sam has actually figured it out as a quarterback. He's not going to be, he's never going to be like the pinpoint accurate guy trying to throw 70% completion. That's just not who he is. He's the guy who still has, you can clearly see the arm talent that got him drafted to 3rd overall. You can see some of the athleticism that's still there. Like, you can see the raw physical skills that made Sam Darnold the number 3 overall draft pick. And now we have to add, he's winning games that he's really supposed to lose. Sam Darnold loses that game on Sunday. The previous versions of Sam Darnold, every chance he gets. It's not just about winning the games where you are more accurate than normal. It's not just about winning the games when Justin Jefferson is going crazy and has a clear mismatch, which is pretty much everybody. It's not just about winning the games when Kevin O'Connell can just write up the world's best offensive game plan. No. The games that Sam Darnold had on Sunday, his worst statistical game, missed several throws, and he still figured out the way to get it done. And I know that's a cliche, and I know no one really wants, especially as stat guys really started being such a huge influence. It's like, oh, well, that's a quarterback win thing, which is a myth. No, not losing the game, finding out a way to win the ugly game, that matters. I said this about Denver a few weeks ago. The game against New York was not pretty, but I've watched Denver over the last 9 years lose that game every chance they could. They lose the close calls. They lose the just not quite there. This year, they're winning those games. This year, Sam Darnold, he's winning those games. And again, this is the week to come out and kill him because he did not play that great. And Sauce Gardner's value, by the way, when talking about the PS2 Sauce stuff, took a real tank because we saw him versus Justin Jefferson, an elite receiver. And I'm not saying PS2 could shut down Jefferson, but I don't think it would look like that. But so, HardRight, I've been right about the Broncos all 3 times this year. And I think I'm finally willing, and I am, for my HardLeft, I am willing to wave my white flag. I was wrong about Sam Darnold. And I think the Vikings, because here's the thing too, the Vikings, people are like, oh, well, if he regresses, we're going to see the reals. If Sam Darnold and the Vikings just play 500 football the remainder of the year, they've already played 5 games. They got 12 games left. They go 6-6. That's an 11-6 football team. Who had Sam Darnold winning 11 games in 2024? Even if you think he's going to come down from this statistical level, an 11-6 season with Sam Darnold? Yeah. I was wrong, and I'm okay with being wrong. That is HardRight, HardLeft. When we come back, we're going to close out with, I have a question for the fans. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. So a theme I always talk about is optimism. I said something before the break. When you're a sports team, giving optimism, giving hope to your fan base, it's hard to say it's an obligation because it's a business, but it's what I would prefer. You know, I always say you could be bad and exciting, but don't be bad and boring. Like Williams, he only played the one series, put up the 70 yards, but he looked as advertised. Jaden Daniels, same thing. If you're Washington, and Washington we've talked about, total reboot. New owner, new coach, new executives, everything's brand new. They just took everything out and said, hey, look, this is who we are going forward. Jaden Daniels, he has the big throw down the sideline, which supposedly the story is he was able to audible out of. He had the touchdown run. He looked as advertised. Drake May probably had the least optimistic part. Not a lot of throws. Not any of the huge wow plays that the first two guys made, but still, he didn't look bad. Penix looked solid. He looked like he was in control. Guy, J.J. McCarthy, same thing here. 2 touchdowns. He probably looked the best in comparison. My guy, Bo Nix, I got $40 on him for this year. 15 to 21, touchdown. He looked like, again, he looked like a guy who it's what they considered Bo Nix to be. And we are back to wrap things up. So I want to ask this question. This is a future topic, but I want to look right into the camera and just ask you guys. So I've seen a bunch of lists lately where it's greatest athlete ever, top 5 athletes ever, top 5 this, especially with baseball, because of the historic season Shohei Ohtani has had. People are starting to invite the conversation of best we've ever seen. Now, that's not the most accolades, it's not the greatest career, but who is just outright the best we've ever seen play this sport? And it got me to thinking, because a lot of these lists have, like, for older guys, they have Babe Ruth, or they have Wilt Chamberlain, or Bill Russell, or these names that just, in 2024, it's hard for a lot of us to relate to. Not that these guys weren't great, but it's just hard to convince me when I've seen some of the footage that Babe Ruth wouldn't be a minor league player today. So I want to ask, what is the cutoff for an athlete to be in the greatest ever conversation? I believe that right now we all basically allow the 90s and up. So this allows for like the Michael Jordans, the Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, guys like that. It's weird because in football, I feel like football gets a pass. Jim Brown is obviously much older than a lot of his contemporaries, who I think hold that position of greatest athlete or greatest NFL player ever. So I want to genuinely ask, what is or what should be the cutoff for the greatest athlete ever? Because we know the games have all changed drastically. The NFL doesn't look like how it did when Jim Brown played. Baseball doesn't look like how it did when Babe Ruth was playing. Basketball clearly doesn't look the same as when Wilt and Bill Russell were playing. And I would say, oh, those are obvious. Except, in my mind, am I going to think athletes who are 50 years removed can't play the sport? Am I going to think 2070 basketball, 2070 NBA is going to be so polarizingly different that Michael and LeBron and Kobe and Steph will just never be able to play that sport, would never be able to play that game? They're going to be too outdated? Am I going to ever think that Shohei Ohtani wouldn't work in 2080 MLB? The same with football. Am I going to one day think Tom Brady wouldn't be a success if he was playing in the 2070 NFL? Again, we all accept now, for the most part, the 90s are acceptable. But is that same philosophy going to exist 30, 40, 50 years down the road? I don't know. It'll be interesting. With that being said, don't forget to check out the show tomorrow as well. We have Will stopping by. We're going to talk a little bit of NBA and some football, the development of Caleb Williams. Don't forget to also check out A&M, and group chat is coming back soon. Appreciate everybody. I appreciate everybody that showed love to the Lamar Jackson video. Appreciate you guys. Some of the comments were super dope. I love the conversation.